Okay, we'll begin Module 8 with Section 1, Rectangular Coordinate System. Please make sure you've printed out the handout that goes along with this, then you can take notes and then use that as you work through the section test. Okay, in what quadrant is each point located? Well, first you need to know what the quadrants are. If you have a grid, the x-axis is horizontal, the y-axis is vertical. Quadrant 1 is in the upper left corner, right corner, excuse me. Quadrant 2, upper left. Quadrant 3, and then quadrant 4 going around counterclockwise. So if you take negative 1, 2, the first number is left and right, the second number is up and down. So if I start at 0, go left 1, up 2, I'm in the second quadrant. Right 3, down 2. Again, you start at 0, go right 3, down 2, you're down in the fourth quadrant. Left 1, down 3, go left 1, down 3, down here someplace, and that is in the third quadrant. So the quadrants usually use Roman numerals. They start in upper right, and then upper left, then go down to lower left and lower right. Okay, suppose you have some data. These just happen to be years, 2000, 2001, 2002, and this is some numbers that correspond to that, maybe houses in a neighborhood or something like that. They want you to make a set of ordered pairs. Well, this is going to be our x, and the numbers 12, 11, 14 are going to be our y's. So you take your 2000 with your 12, your 2001 with your 11, and your 2002 with your 14, and you just separate them with commas and put them in parentheses. So they're a pair of numbers in parentheses. So again, the 2000 goes with the 12, 2001 goes with 11, 2002 goes with 14. Okay, the coordinates of a point. We go left or right. In this case, right 2 and up 3. So it's going to be 2, 3. Okay, on what axis is the point? 0, 4. Well, if you draw an axis, if you go over 0 and count up 4, and that's left or right, you're not going any place, and you're just going up 4. That's on the y-axis. Now, take this information and go through, take the Section 1 test once or twice. If you don't have success, go ahead and go on to Section 2. If you do have success, move on to Section 2 also. Okay, when working through Section 2, that's graphing linear equations. First, it starts off with something like this: is 2, 3, x is 2, y is 3, a solution to x minus 5 equals 3. Well, we take our 2 and plug it in for x, and our 3 is just over here. So we take our 2, plug it in for x, is 2 minus 5 equal to 3. Well, this side's negative 3, that side's positive 3, so no, it is not. Okay, is negative 1, 4 a solution to this set? Well, we take our x, negative 1, plug it in for x, 4, put it in for y. So you have the negative 1 goes where x is, the 4 goes where y is. This is negative 6 plus 8 is equal to negative 3 plus 8 is equal to 5, and that is true. Okay, filling out tables. Tables, you take the first letter and you put it in for x, because that's in the x column. So x is 1. 0.2 times 1 plus 3. That is 3, and this turns out to be 0.2, so your answer is 3.2. So we're going to have a point 1, 3.2. Okay, plug in 2. 2 times 0.2 plus 3. This is 0.4 and 3, so it's 3.4. Then we plug in 3, gives you 0.6 plus 3, 3.6. Now the actual points are 1, 3.2, and then 2, 3.4, and 3, 3.6. And at some point you're going to have to graph these. Just find this point, put a dot on your graph, and then move a little cursor over to this next point. Click again, it'll put another dot, draw a line, and it'll be done for you. Okay, if we're just going to guess what this graph is, y equals 0. Okay, y equals 0. These are y numbers 1, 2, 3, so it's going to be a flat line. This isn't a flat line, so that's not it. Y equals 0 is horizontal. X equals 0. Okay, here's x equals 1, x equals 2, x equals 3. These are going up and down. X equals 0 would be a vertical line. So x equals 0 is a vertical line going through 0. Okay, this is actually going down, so this is a good guess. It's negative, and it's 2, so it's pretty steep slope. So yes, that's a good one. Negative means it's going down, and it's slanted down. Okay, suppose we're going to graph negative 2x. I would do this by plotting points and then putting those on the graph. I usually pick 1, 2, 3 to plug in. So if I plug in 1, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So my point is I plugged in 1 and I got negative 2 for my answer. I'm going to plug in 2. 2 times 2 makes negative 4. So my point is now 2, negative 4. I'm going to plug in 3. Negative 2 times 3 makes 6. My point is 3, negative 6. So now I'm going to open up the graph on my screen. That's what the next thing you need to do. And then put a dot at 1, negative 2, which is 1, negative 2, and I'd click right here. Then just move your cursor to the next one, 2, negative 4, click it, then it'll draw the line for you, and you're there. Okay, take this information and take the section 2 test. Again, take it a couple times, and then move on to section 3. Go ahead and print out the handout, and then move on to section 3 after you've taken the section 2 test a couple times. Okay, section 3 is the distance and midpoint formula. We will need to know if they give you 2 points, and once you find the distance, to find the distance you subtract the x values, square that, add, subtract the y values, and square those. So we subtract our x values, write that down. After you square it, subtract the y values, square that, then take the square root. So now I'm doing this, I have to pick one of these. I'm going to do the negative 1 minus the 2. My negative 1 is an x value, 2 is an x value. So negative 1 minus 2 squared. I'll take my second one, 4 minus 3 squared. Okay, this makes negative 3 squared is 9. 4 minus 3 is 1 squared is 1. So you have the square root of 9 plus 1, which is the square root of 10. This is called the exact answer. So when you're working in section 3, if it says exact, you must leave a square root in your answer. So don't use decimals if it says exact. Now, if it wanted decimals, if it said 2 decimal places, 3 decimal places, thousandths in this case, you could type it in your calculator, take the square root of 10, that'd be 3.162 if it asks for thousandths. But make sure if it says exact, you leave the square root symbol in there. If it says an approximation or thousandths, hundredths, tenths, whatever it says, type it in the calculator. Okay, suppose you want to find the distance between 2 square root of 3, 4 square root of 5, and negative square root of 3, 3 square root of 5. You can take these numbers, and we're going to take the negative square root of 3 and subtract 2 square roots of 3, or either way, we take our x numbers and subtract those. I believe I took the 2 square root of 3 and subtracted the negative square root of 3. Squared that. 4 square root of 5, subtracted 3 square root of 5. Now, when you're combining these, you take the front numbers. This 2 minus a negative 1 makes 3. Square root of 3. You're going to square that. 4 minus 3 makes 1. Square root of 5. These radicals are treated just like letters. This would be like a 2x plus 1 more x makes 3x, except they have 2 square roots. 4x minus 3x would just be 1x. In this case, instead of x, it's the square root of 5. Okay, we square both of these. 3 squared is 9, and a square root squared takes the number out, so it's 9 times 3. The square root of square root takes the number out, so that's just a 5. Now we have 27 plus 5, which makes 32. Now 32 will reduce. You need to have some perfect squares memorized. 2 squared makes 4. 4 squared makes 16. And 16 will go in here, so I'm going to take my 32 and make it 16 times 2. Let me take the square root of 16 now. I can do that. And the square root of 16 is 4. And then the 2 has to stay in because it's not a perfect square. So it's 4 squared root of 2. That's an exact answer. If it wanted a decimal equivalent, you'd have to type it in your calculator. Okay, midpoint. Suppose you have negative 3, 4 and negative 5, 2. Midpoint, you're averaging the points. So you add the x numbers, divide by 2. Add the y numbers and divide by 2. Distance we subtracted, midpoint we add. So in this case, negative 3 plus negative 5. Took my x numbers, negative 3 plus negative 5 divided by 2. Because you have two numbers, when you're averaging them, you divide by 2. My second numbers, 4 and 2. 4 plus 2 divided by 2. When you put these together, it gives you negative 8. Divided by 2 is negative 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. Divided by 2 makes 3. Sorry. Yeah, 8 over 2 and 6 over 2 gives you negative 4 and 3. Okay, suppose you want to find the midpoint between these points. They may give you decimals. They may give you square roots. Again, to find the midpoint, you just combine the x numbers, 2.4 and 1.6. Cut it in half. 5.6, 1.2. The second one is going to be minus this time. So it's 5.6 plus a negative 1.2. I'm going to type these in our calculator. It's going to be 3.9 divided by 2. 4.4 divided by 2. Type this in your calculator. 1.95. Type this in your calculator. 2.2. So that's how you'd find the midpoint. So take this information, hang on to these formulas, and use those when you're working through section 3. And then move on to section 4, which is the next video and the next set of handouts.